everybody, it's Sam Amico. Another edition of Hoops Wire Live here on 330 to go. Thanks so much for joining. I know it's snowy and miserable out, so hopefully you're someplace warm and safe, which is where I was not on my way to the Cavs game last night, but I'll get to that in a second. Cavs right now are cooking. They're cooking again. You know, I think we saw them at their absolute best against the Denver Nuggets. That was what we saw for the majority of the 15-0 streak, the way the Cavs played. And to me, they looked like, you know, a team that when they're clicking on all cylinders, yeah. That I mean, I was sitting, obviously they still let me sit in the press row where I type out my stories on chisel and granite. And I was sitting next to another reporter, Bob Finan, who's been on this very show before. And Bob says, you know, this team could, we were talking about teams that in the previous eras had reached the finals. And Bob kind of said, he came out and said it. This team's, you know, they're not afraid of the Celtics. And they've played them well, even in Boston. They didn't play them well for a half. But, you know, we're obviously looking way ahead to April until, I'm assuming, even though this is Northeast Ohio, this kind of weather will have gone away. And I think that, you know, Bob said this is a team, they could do it. They could do it. By it, you know what we mean, right? Get to the finals. All of that came up because I said I kind of hope this is a finals rematch or finals preview because I enjoy watching the Nuggets play. Who doesn't enjoy watching Nikola Jokic play, right? I think the Nuggets will actually have a lot tougher road than the Cavs if it comes getting to the finals. But I enjoy watching the Nuggets, and obviously the Cavs have been tons of fun. So, getting way ahead of ourselves here, obviously, which is what we do on this show. I like to make grandiose predictions as well as give you some story time as well. So the bottom line here is the Cavs, what we saw against Denver was really them at their very best in that second half. First half was kind of close. You know, I asked Kenny Atkinson, it was 66-62 at halftime. Cavs were clinging to a lead at halftime. And I asked Kenny Atkinson, you know, I said, that third quarter, which is kind of where the Cavs, if you're going to say they've struggled this year, that was the quarter that would kind of, they'd either let the other team go back in the game, or it just wasn't their finest moment after halftime a lot. Well, Kenny Atkinson said, I didn't like our transition defense in the first half. They were getting a lot of layups. They're scoring a lot off the break, and we had to change some things up. And that's what he went over at halftime. And the Cavs came out, and as great as they were offensively, because offensively, we saw what we've seen from them all season. You know, the majority of it. Ball movement, good shots, balance, depth, teamwork, all those positive things you want to hear when you're a basketball team. But defensively, there's been some, you know, adjustments, let's say. And Donovan Mitchell has talked about how they've made these adjustments defensively, and they're still learning certain areas. And I think that they've struggled to defend the perimeter in these first 19, out of the first, 20 games? Well, they're 20-3. So, and the first team 20 wins, by the way. So out of those first 23 games, if you were to identify a problem for a team that's 20-3 for the best record in the NBA, you would say they haven't done a great job defending the three-point line. I thought they did a really good job of that against the Nuggets. And Nuggets aren't a great three-point shooting team, but they do tend to, they can beat you that way. You know, when Jokic is driving and he gets, or he's posting up and he has the ball, he'll kick it back out to shooters on the three-point line. The Cavs didn't didn't give up those threes very often. There was a point in that game where they had outscored the Nuggets on three-pointers in the first half, 36-0. So that tells you that not only were the Cavs knocking down shots, but that they were defending the three-point line. And you know what you really like about Kenny Atkinson to me is he identifies areas of weakness, and the Cavs really start to stress that. So, the fact that they've struggled defending the three-point line and they're showing improvement over the last 3 or 4 games in that area, I think that that's, good coaching. Kenny Atkinson, of course, Eastern Conference Coach of the Month. He said, well, 99% of it's the roster, 1% of it's coaching. We all kind of disagree with that, okay? Because if you remember this offseason, everybody was complaining that the Cavs were doing nothing and just bringing everyone back. Remember that? We're like, the Cavs are one of 3 teams that didn't make a trade or sign a free agent to a real contract. One of 3 teams that didn't do that. The other one was one of the other ones was a defending champion Boston Celtics, and they didn't need to make a move. But everybody thought the Cavs need to make some kind of move, right? Guilty as charged. And they didn't do it. So, people were wondering, really? I think we were all kind of asking, that's it? They're just going to change the coach? That's all they're going to do? And guess what? So far, so great, right? I mean, and the funny thing is, Kenny Atkinson came in and said, we have the pieces here. We already have them here. All we need to do is get them to perform at, if not their best level on a nightly basis, something close to it. And you know what I love about this? He brought in this new offense, and the guys started running it. And Jared Allen just the other day came out and said, yeah, when we first started practicing, I had no clue what we were doing. I was lost. And Darius Garland said, yeah, I hated it. I didn't know what we were doing. It made no sense to me. It seemed like chaos. Now that they've picked up on it, they all love it to a man. You know why? Because it's a share the wealth type of offense. So that means everybody's getting shots. Most people are getting good shots. You don't see the Cavs forcing things very often. Now, they're going to do it sometimes because as basketball players, that's human nature, right? But most of the time, they're sharing the basketball, getting good looks, and playing almost like you would read about basketball as it's described on Wikipedia. Just to show you I'm up to date, I was going to say encyclopedia, but I know many of you probably don't even know what that is, so I went with Wikipedia. So my whole point of this is the ball has been moving wonderfully. We saw that against Denver. When I watched that second half against the Nuggets, I thought, man, this is a fun team to watch. Forget about my job, which please don't do that because, I need the money. But if you're watching this team and you love basketball, this is fun. This is the way it should be played. You've got a bunch of great personalities. Obviously, I'm in the locker room, talk to these guys. I've never had so much fun covering a team. I know we're only 23 games in. They haven't hit that kind of, and maybe they won't, but maybe they hit a stretch where it's not so great. Things aren't going their way. They're not winning. I mean, clearly they don't match up with the world champion Atlanta Hawks, who have handed them 2 of their 3 losses. But actually, Atlanta's been playing extremely, extremely well. Went into Milwaukee. Milwaukee had won 7 straight. And Atlanta went in there the other night and beat them. So, I mean, the Hawks are starting to become a threat. That's a whole nother topic. But I think that, if we're talking about the Cavaliers, tons of fun to watch. Just, if you love basketball, these are the type of teams you want to watch. You don't get frustrated because they're 99% of the time playing the right way. They're making shots. their lone issue, if you want to call it an issue, I don't even want to call it an issue. Their lone kind of hiccup can be their defense of the three-point line. But, before the game, Michael Malone, the Nuggets coach, we asked him about the Cavs in general, and he said, look, man, this is a team that's number one in offense in the entire NBA. And he said, and they're number 8 in defense in terms of opponents scoring and opponents field goal percentage. They're number 8 in the league. And he's like, when you have a team that's in the top 10 in both categories, he's like, usually you get one who's, say, 3 in offense, but they're always going to be, below 15 to 30, anywhere from 15 to 30 defensively. Or vice versa. Some teams are really good defensively, and then their offense is in the 15 to 30 range. The Cavs, he's like, they're in the top 10 in both categories. He's like, that's just dangerous. He's like, that's scary for opponents to come in and realize, this team really has it all. And Michael Malone said, I don't even think they're at their best yet. He's like, they're still learning under a new coach and a new system, both offense and defense. Their defense is totally different than it was last season in terms of their strategy and their philosophy and just their approach to it. Donovan Mitchell said, Kenny's got us playing this zone from time to time. And he's like, we're still figuring that out. And he's like, we're going to take some lumps along the way. And they're 20-3. So their lumps tend to still result in wins. Last year, they won 20 games. Here's a stat that I'm going to rattle off that will have you, again, thinking, wow, Sam really needs to get out more. Last year, they won 20 games, and I know this off the top of my head. But don't ask me what I had for breakfast. Anyway, I'll get to this stat. Last year, they won, okay, so they're 20-3. 20 games, what are we, December 5th or 6th? And they're 20-3. Last year, they won their 20th game on January 5th. So like a month later, they were 35 games in. They were 20-15 last year. So I'm assuming that won't be the case this year. I'm assuming they won't drop 12 straight to finish with the same record, but or to go to 20-15. So I think that says a lot. The last time anyone started 20-3 was the Lakers, and the Bucks both did it in the 2019-20 season. And you know why that season's significant? Because that was the season that the Brooklyn Nets fired Kenny Atkinson. And the Nets' loss has really been the Cavs' gain. And you know what? You talk to Kenny Atkinson. He spent that year with the Clippers. He went to the Golden State Warriors for 3 years under Steve Kerr and said, yeah, I'm a different coach than I was in Brooklyn. And it's from picking up those experiences with those guys. And I've said this on this program before, the Cavs play the very same, almost same style as that quote unquote dynasty Warriors team. They play very similarly. There's a lot of cutting, a lot of passing, a lot of three-point shooting. And as I've told you before, Kenny Atkinson talks a lot about quality shots. And that's what they're looking to get, is shot quality is an actual stat that they keep. And they look at what percentage of our shots are good looks at the basket. And you know what? Other than maybe the Celtics, I don't think there's a team in the league that stacks up to the Cavs in that area. I do watch other games from time to time, and when I watch, other teams on League Pass and all that, and I would say that the Cavs clearly are near the top when it comes to shot quality. So, that in mind, they've got a couple of toughies coming up. When I talk about, they've got a matinee, Saturday afternoon matinee in Charlotte. Okay? That's tough. That's tough for both teams. You know why? And if you read hoopswire.com, which I know you do, in fact, you're probably on there right now. And that's great. But I had a story on there, I think it was 2 days ago, that I think is still on the homepage. I don't know. I don't really know who's in charge there. It's supposed to be me. But there's a story there about how players go about preparing for a game and how oftentimes whoever prepares for the game the best on game day will come out on top. Not always, but there's a lot to be said for it. You know, some players are, alarm goes off, they're right out of bed. Others, and I'm not naming names because it's their own business. Others, you need to, snooze, snooze, snooze. They got to bang on their door on the road, So everybody has a different approach. And then there's, at least in terms of waking up, and whether that's home or the road, So, and then there's, most of these games start at 7, 8, they're in the evening, right? So having a game at 1 o'clock kind of really messes with everybody's routine, because after you get up, you go to shoot around. Shoot arounds, every coach has a different approach to shoot around. Some are going over strategies. Some are putting in little sets or little plays or little things that teams need to work on. Other teams, it's almost goof off time. Go in there and get relaxed. And Doug Moe back with the Denver Nuggets. It used to be a time to smoke cigars and joke around while shooting baskets. That's what shoot around used to be, at least and Doug Moe's line was, it's shoot around, so just go out there and shoot. I don't care what else we do. And you know what? Those Nuggets teams were always relaxed and good. So whatever it is, you have this routine. And then after that, it's, a healthy lunch. We're talking clean eats here, fish and vegetables or whatever. And then after that, it's nap time. Most of the players go take naps, relax, have some time off, and then you get to the arena and you put up some more shots and do that stuff. So everybody has their own routine. And there's really no big, there might be a little snack before the game, but for most players, at least in this era, there's not a big deal in terms of amount of food. That's different from like back in the 70s. I kid you not, some of the players would, smoke before the game. I kid you not. Fred Carter, who played for the Sixers, was a notorious chain smoker and used to go at halftime so he could have a few smokes. That was back in the 70s when we thought smoking was good for you. So, I got all kinds of tales from that, and I can't remember who it was. Was it Walt Frazier? Somebody from that era, and I'll look it up, and I think I'm writing this story for the website. I haven't posted it yet, but it'll be on there, and I'll know the guy who did it. But he used to, because you're only supposed to not fill yourself up with a bunch of food before the game. He used to sneak into the training area and the restroom area and eat 2 huge hot dogs right before the game, because that was his routine. And he was superstitious about it. So he's like, well, I got to go down 2 hot dogs before tip-off. And then he'd go out to the layup line. I got to find out who it was. I think it was Walt Frazier, but I'm not positive. If I remember next week to share this nonsense, I will. So, anyway, my whole point in all of that was the fact that Cavs play a 1 o'clock game Saturday. That's obviously going to impact the Hornets too. It's in Charlotte. That messes with your game day routine. Those are tough games for these guys to play because they're usually napping at 1 o'clock. So now you have a game at 1 o'clock. And it's not just the Cavs. Anybody who plays at that time has, the game can be a little bit ugly. Whenever I see these 1 o'clock games, I'm just like, or noon, I'm just like, these games can be so ugly. But because both teams are experiencing a complete, it's just different, totally different routine for them those days. Okay, then after that, they fly to Miami, And there'll be in Miami Sunday night at 6 is their game this week. Then they get 4 days off. They don't play Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Come home. The league has blessed them with an extra game against the Washington Wizards in Cleveland next Friday. That's a result of the Cavs not making the NBA Cup knockout rounds, which I'm sorry, I wouldn't be excited if they did. I don't think anybody would either. We'd all be like, what does that even mean? Now, I know some people are really into the NBA Cup. I just haven't met them or heard from them. But they reportedly do exist. So, anyway. Yes, the Browns, Guardians, Cavs. Yeah, I don't know that I include the Browns in there. I will tell you this. I love watching Jameis Winston, and I hope, win, lose, or draw, with as many quarterbacks as the Browns have gone through, I hope he's their quarterback till he's 45 years old. He's just a lot of fun to watch. That's right. I've reminded people on this show, do not bother me during Browns games, because I'm an emotional basket case, way more than I am on this, even than I am on this show, which I know is hard to believe. But I am, and, this was the first Browns loss this last week where I thought that was a fun game. I mean, it wouldn't have been fun if the Browns were actually going somewhere. I'd have been mad that they lost. But I was like, well, even though Jameis Winston threw 2 pick sixes and an interception right in the end zone, I was like, yeah, you know what? Quit messing around with quarterbacks. Maybe draft one and keep Jameis Winston there. I think you can win with him. I think you're going to lose with him too, but I still think he's better than the other guy. All right, back to the Cavaliers. Guess what? So, that's the upcoming schedule. At Charlotte, Saturday, 1 o'clock. And I'll tell you what, writers have their routines too. I don't want to have to get up early to watch this game. I'm just kidding. But there's 1 o'clock Saturday in Charlotte, 6 o'clock Sunday night at Miami. Those aren't going to be easy games. I mean, there's really, unless you're playing the Wizards, there's no such thing as an NBA easy game. So the Cavs know that, especially if you're on the road. So, these are the type of games where it's like, okay, they may have to push through a little bit more. Miami just beat the Lakers by 41 points. Not that the Lakers are any big deal, but still, you beat an NBA team by 41 points. That says a lot. Which leads me, and then the Cavs have a bunch of days off, and then they play Washington at home on Friday. Which leads me to my next point. People have asked me about LeBron and whether or not I think he's fading. And you know what? He's going to be 40 this month. Yes, he is. In short, he is. And that's, I saw it with the Washington Wizards years ago. When you try to build your team around a 40-year-old, it's going to be what it is. And LeBron's still magnificent. He's the best 40-year-old in NBA history. And, but he is 40, and that's showing. I'm sorry, he's not going to be 40 till December 30th, which, interestingly, the Cavs play the Lakers the next night after LeBron's 40th birthday in Los Angeles. So, yeah, I mean, look, they say Father Time is undefeated. It took him a little while longer to beat LeBron, to conquer LeBron, but he's doing it. And, yeah. So, I can't imagine LeBron wanting to play. You know what? I can imagine him wanting to play, but I can't. I don't know that it'd be a great idea for him to play next year, unless he's willing to be like the fourth option. And maybe he is. But right now, when you have a 40-year-old as the guy that you're hoping will carry you to wins, you're probably going to not. This is the kind of season you're going to have. And look, the Lakers have a winning record right now. Don't get me wrong. And they are really good some nights. But You're not going anywhere as constructed. So that's my answer to that question. And LeBron's not suddenly going to get younger and turn a corner. Maybe in the playoffs they can preserve him long enough. He said his goal was to play in all 82 games, and Lakers coach JJ Redick said, "Yeah, I don't know that that's a great idea." So, maybe they can preserve him in terms of resting him and getting him some time off before the playoffs, and that'll help rejuvenate him. Either way, I hope it's the Cavs and the Nuggets in the finals. I don't know that the Nuggets will get there either because their bench is not very good right now. So, but I think the Cavs have a great opportunity to get there when they play like they played Thursday night and have played for the majority of the season. To me, the only team in the East right now that think that the Cavs need to worry about are the Celtics. The Knicks are starting to pull it together a little bit, and they've got a nice roster. The Knicks don't concern me as much with Kenny Atkinson as coach. I think that he kind of cancels out any kind of shortcomings. The Cavs, of course, went to Madison Square Garden and won. I don't know what game that was. It was very early in the season, though. So, the Knicks are starting to figure it out after the big trade for Karl-Anthony Towns and Mikal Bridges during this offseason. So they're going to be dangerous at the end. They've got decent depth. So that, to me, it's the Cavs, Celtics, Knicks. The Bucks are starting to pull it together a little bit. They're going to be dangerous come the playoffs. Who knows where the Atlanta Hawks are going to go? The one team nobody talks about is the Orlando Magic in the Eastern Conference. And they've looked great. They're still unbeaten at home as we record this. They're still unbeaten at home. And they've done a lot of it without Paolo Banchero, who's their star player. So that's a team that's deep with great defense. And they match up very well against Cavs. Clearly, the Atlanta Hawks match up very well against Cavs. So the Cavs are 20-3. But the reality is, think about how many games there's been so far. There's 60 more to go. 59 if you really want me to do the math, which, when I took this job, they promised me I wouldn't have to do. So 59 more of these games. There's 2 West Coast trips. Okay, those are tough. Cavs have a trip where they play the Warriors and the Lakers pretty much, on the same trip. They still got to go to Golden State, still got to go to Los Angeles, play both the Warriors and both the Lakers and the Clippers. They got to visit the Denver Nuggets. They still have to play Oklahoma City Thunder, who are leading the Western Conference and looking great. They still got to play them twice. There are a lot of these games that are, statement games that are true tests that remain on the schedule. We have almost as many games they played. We have almost 3 times as many to go. I don't know if that math adds up. So, please, don't let me know if I'm wrong. So anyway, all right. Well, I'll wrap this up with a fun story, which involves Sam Amico, as they so often do. When there's something to ridicule, it's generally me. Last night, let me start with 2 nights ago with the Wizards game. 3 nights ago now. I go out to my car, my vehicle, after the game against the Wizards, and I'm walking out there. There's a couple other reporters who had either beaten me out or were behind me, but I was walking out there alone into the East parking garage, which is the parking garage that sits right there between Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse and Progressive Field. So, there's a little media area to park there. So I was walking out to that, and the parking garage was pitch black. There were no lights on. This is like, by the time I get done writing my story, get done visiting with the other writers and stuff, it's like 11:30 at night. So the parking garage was pitch black, and all I thought was, well, that's weird. And I didn't make anything big deal about it, but here I learned shortly thereafter that the lights were off because all of the electricity was out, which meant the little electric gate that lifts up to let you leave was down. It wasn't operating. So seemed that other people, the arena workers, other writers, of course, figured that out way before Sam Amico did, because he doesn't pay attention. So, I drove up to the gate. I was behind a couple other cars, and I started beeping on the horn, like, go! Well, guess what? There was no go, because the gate was locked. And then I started to realize all these cars were lining up behind me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what are we going to, are we going to sleep here? This would really be tough to explain to family and friends, how I slept in the, no, I honestly had to sleep in the parking garage. Fortunately, about 20 minutes later, the police showed up, and they're calling. Bob Finan told me he called 911. And he was serious. I'm like, no, you didn't. He's like, no, I did. I'm like, 911? That's for emergencies. He's like, well, I had to go to the bathroom. That's an emergency. So, I guess it is. I can't imagine calling 911 and them asking you, what's your emergency? Yeah, I have to go to the bathroom. I'm going to try that sometime. Which, if I don't do the show next week, you'll know why. It's because I'm in jail for goofing around with 911. So eventually, an individual came around vehicle to vehicle and said, look, you're all going to have to reverse, which is going to take a half hour. And we're going to go up through this other exit that we're figuring out how to get open. But you've got to go up to the second level to get out that way. So he's going car to car. And as he comes to my car and starts explaining that, he's like, look, you're going to have to do this. And boom. While talking to me, the electricity comes back on. And he was like, well, forget it. I guess we're good to go. And I'd like to take some credit for that. I think I bring the lights back on, baby. I don't know what that means. But yeah, I was thrilled. He's sitting there talking to me, and I'm like, ugh. And then all of a sudden the lights go right on. And you know how you're sitting there like, oh, this stinks, what's gonna happen, blah blah blah. And then all of a sudden, the blink of an eye, everything changes for the better. Or so I thought. So, I do the Full Court Cleveland show. Obviously, FanDuel Sports Network. I don't know why I said obviously. It's not like all of you are dying to watch Amico on your television sets. But you might be dying to watch Boobie Gibson, and he's also on the show. So, last night, drove to Burke Lakefront Airport, taped the show. And I'm like, well, there's a Cavs game, so I'm not driving all the way back to Summit County. I'm going to work here. Went to the Panera there on Rockside Road in Independence. And as I'm making my way there, I'm sitting at the red light on the exit, fortunately. And I look, and you can see, I could see my tire sensors. It tells you what the pressure is in each tire. And my left tire on the driver's side is going from 36 on the rear tire is going from 36 down to 1 as I'm sitting at this red light. And I'm like, oh boy, all I got to do is make it to that Panera. I actually went to the gas station, filled it up, which was like, and I could just hear, the sound of the air blowing back out of the tire as I filled it up. But I'm like, just get me to the Panera, which was not even a mile from where I was. It was like 2 blocks. And by the time I filled it up, by the time I got to Panera, it was out of air again. So, if you wanted to see Sam Amico out in the snow with no gloves, I had no gloves because I'm a totally irresponsible person, unprepared. That was me. That was me out in the Panera parking lot. They were probably like, who's this idiot with basically like a windbreaker and no gloves and no winter hat lying on the pavement under his truck? And then somebody said, oh, that's Sam Amico. And then, well, somebody said, well, of course it is. So on that note, the Cavs are humming. We're having fun. Like I said, these games this weekend will not be easy, but I think, as Bob Finan said to me, they have a real belief, and it's very obvious the Cavs do. And if they continue to play this way, they're going to give themselves a real shot at something really good. So we will end it there, and I appreciate you so much joining, and I hope I have no more changing tires stories for you for the rest of the season. So have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next time.